Most men misunderstand what women actually mean when they say they want an alpha. They imagine dominance, aggression, talking louder, asserting power, or trying to control situations. But real alpha energy has nothing to do with being forceful or overbearing. In fact, the louder and more reactive a man is, the less alpha he appears. True alpha energy is quiet, grounded, and emotionally stable. It's leadership at the emotional level, not performance at the ego level. Women are constantly experiencing emotional shifts. Their attraction is tied far more to how they feel around a man than to what he says or does logically. An alpha man understands this instinctively. He doesn't try to correct her emotions, argue with them, or take them personally. Instead, he regulates the emotional environment simply by how he shows up. His calmness becomes the anchor. His certainty becomes the direction. His presence alone lowers tension and creates a sense of ease. This is why alpha energy is so magnetic. When a man is internally stable, he gives a woman permission to relax into her femininity. She doesn't feel the need to lead, test excessively, or stay guarded. She can express emotion freely because she senses that he can handle it, not manage it, not suppress it, handle it. That distinction matters more than most men realize. A man who lacks alpha energy constantly reacts. If she pulls back, he panics. If she challenges him, he explains. If she goes quiet, he chases. All of these behaviors signal emotional dependence, and emotional dependence flips polarity. It pushes her into a masculine role where she feels responsible for the emotional direction of the interaction. Attraction dies there. Alpha energy reverses this dynamic completely. The alpha man does not chase emotional certainty. He already has it internally. When she's playful, he enjoys it. When she's distant, he stays grounded. When she's emotional, he remains steady. He doesn't reward chaos, but he also doesn't punish emotion. He simply continues being himself, and that consistency is what creates emotional safety. This emotional safety is misunderstood as being nice or being agreeable, but it's neither. It's strength without tension. It's confidence without ego. It's leadership without control. Women crave this because it allows their emotions to flow naturally instead of being forced into defense or resistance. Another critical part of alpha emotional leadership is decisiveness, not dominance, not bossiness, but clarity. The alpha doesn't hesitate endlessly or outsource decisions to avoid responsibility. He chooses, he moves forward, and he adjusts if needed. This forward motion keeps emotional momentum alive. It prevents stagnation, confusion, and overthinking, which are major attraction killers. When a man leads emotionally, a woman doesn't feel like she has to test him constantly. Tests exist to check stability. When stability is obvious, tests fade. She relaxes. She becomes more open, more expressive, more affectionate, and more emotionally invested without even realizing why. This is why women are drawn to men who feel solid rather than impressive. Muscles, money, and status may catch attention, but emotional leadership keeps desire alive. It's the difference between short-term excitement and long-term fascination. Alpha energy isn't something you perform for women. It's something you cultivate within yourself. When you stop needing validation, stop reacting emotionally, and start trusting your own direction, your presence changes. And when your presence changes, her emotional response changes automatically. That is the foundation everything else builds on. One of the fastest ways a man loses attraction is by allowing a woman's emotions to dictate his behavior. This doesn't mean emotions are bad. It means reacting to them impulsively puts her in control of the emotional direction. And once that happens, polarity collapses. An alpha man understands that attraction thrives when he sets the emotional frame and stays grounded inside it, regardless of her momentary moods. Women naturally test emotional strength, often without conscious intent. A sudden change in tone, delayed responses, playful disrespect, silence, or emotional swings are not random. They are checks, not to see if a man is perfect, but to see if he is stable. When a man panics, over-explains, apologizes excessively, or chases reassurance, he fails the test without realizing it. He signals that his emotional state depends on her reactions. Alpha energy is revealed when a man refuses to be pulled into emotional turbulence. He doesn't argue with feelings. He doesn't try to fix moods. He doesn't ask what he did wrong every time energy shifts. Instead, he stays relaxed and consistent. His tone stays calm. His behavior stays aligned with his values. He doesn't abandon himself to gain emotional approval. Setting the emotional frame means deciding internally how you will experience the interaction, regardless of what she brings emotionally. If she's playful, you stay playful. If she's distant, you don't chase. If she's emotional, you don't withdraw or overact. You allow her experience without letting it control yours. This creates a powerful emotional contrast that women feel deeply. When a man chases mood swings, he trains a woman to associate drama with attention. She learns that emotional volatility gives her control. Over time, this escalates into power struggles, emotional exhaustion, and loss of respect. Attraction doesn't disappear because she's difficult. It disappears because the man surrendered his frame. Alpha men don't do that. They understand that feminine emotion is fluid by nature. It rises, falls, shifts, and recalibrates constantly. Trying to stabilize it externally is impossible. The only thing that can stabilize emotional energy is a grounded masculine presence. When a man remains steady, her emotions naturally begin to align with his state instead of pulling him into hers. This is where women feel most feminine, not when they're managing a man's feelings, but when they're free to express their own without consequences. The alpha doesn't reward bad behavior, but he also doesn't punish emotion. He simply doesn't change who he is because of it. That non-reactivity communicates strength at a subconscious level. Holding frame doesn't mean being cold or detached. It means being emotionally self-contained. You can still tease, flirt, laugh, and connect deeply. The difference is that none of it comes from a place of need. You're sharing energy, not seeking validation. When a woman realizes she can't manipulate your emotional state, something shifts. She stops testing as much. She starts investing more. She becomes curious instead of controlling. The emotional safety she feels comes from knowing you won't collapse under pressure or disappear when emotions get intense. This is why alpha energy is so rare and so desired. Most men are taught to appease emotions instead of lead them. But leadership isn't about control, it's about consistency. When your internal state is unshaken, her emotions settle naturally into attraction. That's when the dynamic becomes effortless instead of exhausting. One of the most overlooked principles of female attraction is the way scarcity drives desire. Women are naturally drawn to men who have their own lives, interests, and priorities. Men often misinterpret this, thinking that constant attention, over-texting, or excessive emotional investment will make a woman feel closer or more attached. In reality, it usually produces the opposite effect: emotional saturation, loss of intrigue, and diminished attraction. Scarcity is not about being distant or cold, it's about value and presence. When a man has his own purpose, routines, friendships, and ambitions, his attention becomes a resource, something she earns, not something she automatically receives. This creates natural desire because humans are wired to seek what is meaningful, rare, or earned. If his attention is too freely given, it loses weight and attraction diminishes. Women respond positively when they sense a man's life is rich without them. They feel drawn to participate rather than obligated to fill a vacuum. The difference is subtle but critical. Attraction grows when she has to engage, chase, or invest emotionally because his world isn't dependent on her validation. Overinvestment, on the other hand, communicates neediness. When a man constantly texts, over-explains, or seeks reassurance, it signals that his emotional state depends on her response. This reverses polarity. She no longer feels free and feminine. She feels responsible for stabilizing his emotions. Tests, games, and withdrawal often emerge as a direct response to this imbalance. Scarcity also creates anticipation. A man who doesn't rush to respond immediately, who spends his time meaningfully, or who prioritizes his own growth subtly communicates value. Women naturally notice this. Their desire is heightened not because he is manipulative, but because he is engaged in life on his own terms. The mystery, unpredictability, and independence are inherently attractive. Moreover, scarcity encourages emotional focus. When a woman senses that a man's attention is finite, she pays more attention to what he does offer. Her emotions become attuned to his energy, his presence, and his actions rather than being dulled by constant availability. This is what keeps her in the good pipe laying zone emotionally, where her feelings are fun, playful, and oriented toward connection instead of control. Scarcity also reinforces masculine polarity. The man maintains the masculine role naturally because his priorities, decisions, and direction aren't dictated by her moods or needs. He doesn't adjust to appease, he leads by example. Women are instinctively drawn to this because it aligns with their innate need for structure and safety within attraction. It's important to clarify scarcity does not mean neglect or absence. It means living a full life, being intentional with attention, and valuing one's own time and energy. The effect is not emotional deprivation, but emotional optimization. The woman begins to desire more of what is limited, precious, and high quality, both in attention and presence. Men who master this principle stop chasing validation and stop over-investing emotionally. They create an environment where women are naturally attracted, playful, and emotionally engaged without being manipulated. Scarcity becomes a tool of alignment, not coercion. When attention is given selectively and energy is focused purposefully, desire grows organically. Women become emotionally invested not because they are forced, but because they are drawn to a man whose life radiates purpose, confidence, and independence. A fundamental mistake many men make in dating and relationships is confusing leadership with approval seeking. They believe that keeping a woman happy or constantly checking in on her emotional state is the key to attraction. In reality, it's the opposite. Women are hardwired to respond to masculine direction, clarity, and decisiveness, not to a man who looks to them for validation. Masculine polarity, the magnetic push and pull that keeps a woman emotionally engaged, depends on a man leading with confidence rather than negotiating for approval. Direction in this sense isn't about bossness or domination. It's about having a clear sense of purpose, making decisions confidently, and guiding interactions with certainty. When a man provides direction, he removes uncertainty from the emotional equation. Women don't crave control. They crave a man who can navigate life and relationships with authority and stability. That authority isn't demonstrated through force. It's shown through alignment. He knows where he stands, what he wants, and how he will act. Approval seeking undermines this dynamic. A man who constantly asks for feedback, permission, or reassurance communicates insecurity. He puts her in a subtle position of responsibility for his emotional state. She is no longer free to be feminine. Instead, she unconsciously becomes the stabilizer of his emotions. This flips the polarity. The masculine energy that draws her in is replaced by dependence, which diminishes attraction over time. Masculine polarity thrives on contrast. When a man has clear direction and doesn't defer to emotional whims, her feminine energy naturally responds. She becomes more expressive, playful, and emotionally attuned because she feels safe to explore her feelings without having to lead the interaction. This is the essence of the good pipe laying zone. In attraction, she experiences emotional highs and lows in response to his consistent frame, rather than constantly testing or trying to control him. Another key element of direction is decision-making. A man who hesitates, overanalyzes, or seeks her input for every choice appears weak and indecisive. Women don't want to be bosses, they want to be guided. Clear, decisive action communicates competence, confidence, and leadership, all traits that trigger deep attraction. When he takes the lead naturally, she experiences the emotional polarity that keeps desire alive. Direction also includes setting boundaries. A man who knows his limits and enforces them without drama communicates self-respect and stability. Women instinctively respond to men who are consistent in their standards because it creates a sense of predictability and emotional security. Boundaries are not punishment, they are clarity. They show that he values himself and, by extension, the connection with her, but on his terms. Masculine polarity is amplified by detachment from approval. The man's choices are based on his inner compass, not her reactions. He engages with her because he wants to, not because he needs her to validate him. That subtle difference shifts the dynamic from one of tension and obligation to one of attraction and engagement. She wants to align with him emotionally because his energy is compelling, not coercive. Ultimately, women are drawn to men who embody direction and decisiveness. Approval seeking erodes masculine polarity while confident leadership amplifies it. When a man leads effectively, her emotions remain positively engaged, and attraction thrives naturally. One of the most powerful secrets to female attraction is understanding that emotional intensity does not require chaos. Many men mistakenly believe that creating excitement or keeping a woman interested means arguing, provoking jealousy, or manufacturing drama. In reality, women are drawn to men who can trigger emotional highs through presence, energy, and subtle contrasts without ever destabilizing her or themselves. This is the essence of maintaining the good pipe laying zone, where her emotions are positively engaged and desire remains high. Emotional highs are triggered by contrast. A man who is consistently grounded yet unpredictable in his energy creates a magnetic pull. Playfulness, humor, and confidence all contribute to moments of emotional excitement. She experiences fun, intrigue, and anticipation because his energy fluctuates within a safe frame, not because he loses control or creates tension. Drama artificially stimulates emotion, but it doesn't sustain attraction. Contrast, on the other hand, it creates genuine emotional engagement that feels effortless and compelling. Alpha men understand the difference between chaos and stimulation. They don't need conflict to make her feel alive. They use presence, tone, and action to generate engagement naturally. A playful tease, a confident choice, or a subtle display of independence can create powerful emotional spikes. These moments are memorable because they arise organically, not because they were forced. Over time, these emotional highs build a sense of excitement that keeps her thinking about him throughout the day. Another crucial element is anticipation. Women are naturally drawn to experiences that are emotionally rewarding yet unpredictable in the best way. A man who knows how to pull back slightly, give space, and then re-engage creates cycles of desire. This ebb and flow of attention and presence stimulates her nervous system and keeps her emotionally invested without creating stress or anxiety. Overinvestment from him, on the other hand, leads to emotional flattening, where everything feels predictable and uninteresting. Emotional highs are also amplified by authenticity. When a man is genuinely confident, self-contained, and aligned with his purpose, he radiates energy that women unconsciously recognize as high value. His excitement, passion, and engagement are contagious because they are rooted in reality, not performance. Women are biologically wired to respond to authentic masculine energy. Attempts to manufacture drama or excitement feel fake and often backfire, creating suspicion or resistance rather than attraction. Importantly, he never loses his own emotional balance in the process. Emotional highs are not the result of him being reactive or needy. They are the result of him being fully present and emotionally self-contained. This allows her to experience intensity without fear or obligation. She can lean into her femininity, play, and express desire freely, knowing he can hold his frame no matter what. This containment is what keeps her thinking about him all day. Finally, the alpha man uses these emotional tools without expecting constant validation or reciprocation. His energy isn't contingent on her response. It exists independently. This detachment creates polarity, the magnetic pull between masculine stability and feminine expression. Women are instinctively drawn to this because it satisfies a deep psychological need. The security of masculine energy paired with the excitement of unpredictability. By generating emotional highs in this way, a man keeps her emotions positively engaged and desire constantly alive. She experiences joy, anticipation, and connection without feeling manipulated or pressured, creating a natural, sustainable cycle of attraction that keeps her emotionally invested. The final key to keeping a woman emotionally engaged and craving your presence is mastering detachment from outcome. Most men make the fatal error of tying their self-worth, happiness, or validation to a woman's reactions, attention, or affection. This dependency erodes masculine energy, flips polarity, and diminishes attraction. Women are unconsciously drawn to men who remain internally stable regardless of external circumstances. Detachment is not coldness, it's emotional sovereignty, and it creates a powerful magnetic pull that keeps her invested. When a man is outcome dependent, he reacts to her moods, tests, and withdrawals with anxiety, overtexting, or attempts to fix the situation. These behaviors signal a lack of self-sufficiency, which women sense instinctively. Emotional dependence reverses polarity. The man becomes needy, the woman becomes distant, and the emotional dynamic destabilizes. The energy that once drew her and now repels her. Detachment, on the other hand, restores natural attraction because it communicates confidence, autonomy, and security. Detachment does not mean ignoring her or being passive. It means remaining fully engaged in life, relationships, and interactions without needing her response to validate your value. When a man detaches from outcome, he interacts from choice rather than compulsion. His energy is calm, grounded, and self-directed. This allows her emotions to flow freely around him because she senses there are no manipulations, no pressure, no attempts to control her. She can lean into her femininity safely, knowing he is steady. A detached man also allows natural emotional consequences to occur. If she withdraws, he maintains his frame. If she tests, he responds with calm confidence, not panic. If she becomes playful or affectionate, he receives it graciously, but without dependency. This balance of engagement and neutrality creates polarity, the tension and release that women find irresistible. It keeps her emotionally invested without forcing her hand or manufacturing drama. Detachment amplifies emotional highs and curiosity. When a woman realizes that her actions do not control him, she becomes intrigued. She wants to understand, connect, and engage with him on her terms because he has set a clear boundary of independence. This freedom paradoxically deepens attachment because she is no longer carrying the responsibility for his emotional state. Emotional responsibility naturally shifts back to him, which reinforces attraction. Another benefit of detachment is that it protects the man from frustration, resentment, and over-analysis. When outcomes do not dictate his happiness, he can maintain clarity, focus, and energy for what truly matters, his life purpose and emotional frame. Women instinctively notice this self-possession and are drawn to it because it signals high value and masculine stability. Detachment also creates anticipation and value. When he does not chase or beg for emotional reassurance, his attention becomes meaningful and scarce. Scarcity, combined with consistent presence and grounded alpha energy, keeps her emotions engaged in a positive cycle. She thinks about him, desires his presence, and remains connected emotionally because his energy feels both compelling and unshakable. Ultimately, detachment from outcome is the secret to sustaining feminine emotional engagement. It transforms interactions from reactive and chaotic to magnetic and playful. Women are instinctively drawn to men who remain grounded, independent, and emotionally sovereign because this creates safety, polarity, and desire. When a man masters detachment, he doesn't need to control her feelings or manipulate situations. Her emotions naturally align with his presence, curiosity is sparked, and attraction deepens without effort.